Welcome to the Sports Complex here on August 8th. Time to get into some sports stories for you today. We're going to talk a little bit about the Cowboys. Zach Martin still holding out. Mike McCarthy talked to the press yesterday. We got some sound from that. We'll talk a little bit about the Texans. Of course, Patrick's big fat poll of the day. We got a new one for you today and the results of yesterday's. We're going to play you a little clip from earlier on the Horn. E and Rod B talked to Peter Futuk from College Football News. We'll replay that interview, and we'll get into some stories about realignment. Steve Sarkisian talking some Texas football, give you a little bit more reason to drink some Kool-Aid if you're a Longhorns fan. And then, of course, the Rangers and Astros both in action tonight. The Astros begin their series with the Orioles. The Rangers get a win last night against Oakland. And we got last call coming up later on the show as well. Of course, you are a big part of the show, so we want you to join us on the Specs text line. 512-337-3776 is how to join the conversation with us here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Let's get right into it. I want to thank, first of all, thanks to friends over at Bender Bar last night. Went over last night to celebrate one show done. One out of many to come, and hung out with some friends, and then we turned into the dorkiest guys at the bar, because of course by the end of it you get a few drinks in, and then we were doing mock drafts at the end of a bar. I don't know if that's the most pathetic thing I've done at a bar. It's the most pathetic thing I've done at a bar recently. I can give you that. I've probably done something dumber and more pathetic in my youth, but yeah, now just getting older and sitting at the end of a bar, just drinking, doing shots, and mock drafting, and then the worst part is over passing the phones around with the who we drafted and critiquing each other's mock draft abilities, getting ready for fantasy football season. It's a sad life. It's a sad life. Something else that is sad: the Dallas Cowboys and Zach Martin are continuing their holdouts. Zach Martin is now, I believe, at $600,000. That's $500,000 a day that Zach Martin is having to pay. $50,000 a day. Sorry, $50,000 a day that he is for every day he misses of his training camp out of holdout. Jerry Jones has been pretty vocal on this so far. He came out originally, thought it wouldn't be a problem. Apparently, Zach Martin was not willing to budge as much as Jerry Jones thought he was. First Jerry Jones quote was, you realize that not having him here, it could happen via injury on the next play, Jones said. So you've got to put that one on and say you just move on here without him. Not confidence inspiring to basically say, hey, you know what, he may not even be here anyway. It's completely preventable. We could reach an agreement. This doesn't seem to be, this is an injury. This is a much more fixable problem, but no, we're going to treat it like that. And when he was asked if he was surprised that Zach Martin is continuing to hold out, he said, not really. Surprise is really not the word there. It's very costly. And so that's where we are. Huge, significant ramifications by anybody's math. I don't know if he's trying to talk to Zach Martin or if he's trying to scare the rest of us, because $50,000 a day, that's a lot of, that's scary to all of us, and I'm sure it's scary to Zach Martin as well. And I'm guessing it's not helping negotiations. I'm guessing there is no love lost when you're continuing to be fined, and these are not, once you have these fines, once you start putting these fines out, there is no, you can't go, you know what, we agreed to terms and now we're not going to fine you. You can try and put something back into his contract. You can try and make it up if you renegotiate a deal. But if you don't renegotiate a deal and he just shows back up, he's out that money. There is no other way of doing this. The NFL has made it on purpose to not allow players to hold out and think that, okay, well, if I show up, I'll get leniency. There's no leniency in this one. This becomes even worse when you see that Tyler Biadasz leaves practice today with an injury. I haven't seen an update on that one yet. If you have one, send us in on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776. But we haven't seen an update on Tyler Biadasz, but he leaves today in practice. We know that Zach Martin is not showing up. We know that, You have Tyler Smith, who had a pretty good season last year. You have Tyron Smith, who was injured a lot of last year, is getting older. And this O-line is going from something that seemed like it wasn't going to be a problem. That seemed like, okay, you draft Tyler Smith last year, that kind of fixed the hole. Terrence Steele is going to be coming back. He's going to be playing better after surgery. He's starting to feel better. You have Tyler Biadasz, who's a Pro Bowler. You have Tyron Smith, who's an amazing left tackle. There's a lot you can have going on in this team. And you know what? I think that this O-line going forward is going to be a strength of this Cowboys offense. And what we have begun to see is that not only is it not a strength of the Cowboys offense right now, it is starting to be one of the pieces that is adding on to the many problems of the Cowboys offense that you want to go into training camp drinking Kool-Aid, and everything I keep seeing out of the Cowboys training camp is making me it's not even Flavor Aid. This is unsweetened tea at best. Mike McCarthy was talking to the press. He mentioned he wanted to talk a little bit about the O-line. He was asked about how he views the O-line with injuries, with Zach Martin not being there. Here's Mike McCarthy talking about his view of the O-line in training camp.
How would you view them? I would say that the experience that we're getting our guys is great. And, the line movement is excessive, which is awesome for us, because, we're playing against a defensive front that moves a lot and has all the different combinations. And that's one thing in training camp as an offensive protection you can't get enough of. So the results, I wouldn't, I think you can always get into the results, leaning towards the defense, particularly this time of year, particularly with the second group of offensive linemen. But, A would be experience. Unfortunately, we have a lot of different combinations, so that's fortunate for young players. Not probably where you always like to be, a week or two from now set on your starting five. So we're still a ways from that. But I do like the experience that our offensive line unit's getting. The run blocking is okay. I mean, we're doing a good job. You can see our double teams are starting to get tighter and things like that. We got to be a little better on the backside. So the run blocking's coming. But the pass protection, this is great work for us. And frankly, it's part of the reason why I felt very confident in our training here in Oxnard and didn't have to go. I didn't feel the need to go practice against somebody else because, our line work is exceptional in my view.
Yeah, I don't think that was a very confidence-inspiring statement from Mike McCarthy, because it seemed like he basically spent the first 50 seconds of that clip talking about, things are not great, and they're progressing, but the double teams are still getting through, and we got a really good defense. So it's hard to tell that our O-line, but we're getting the best work because our defense is really good. So, but once we play another defense, we'll be able to tell better, because it's really the problem is our defense is so good. That's why our O-line doesn't look good. And then he slips in. That's why they didn't want to scrimmage. They don't want to scrimmage because our defense is so good. Look, we don't want to do that. And maybe that's true. Or maybe they don't want to scrimmage because they know they're not ready to play anybody yet. They're not ready to put their best out there, that they're worried that without Zach Martin, with some injuries on that O-line, that the O-line's not there, that we know the running game, that the running game for this Cowboys team, you have a Tony Pollard coming back from a major injury, a rookie in Deuce Vaughn. Ronald Jones is not there. He's going to be suspended the first 2 games of the season. And he's not even there right now for camp. He missed practice today. So what are you going to be able to do with the running game if you don't have an O-line that is able to protect? You don't have an O-line that's able to open up any holes, run any schemes, do anything like that. If you don't have that O-line, and then you're trying to stick a running back that works really, really good in space, but he may not get that space because he's not getting the blocking he needs to get. So now we say we have a running back who needs space and can't get it, so he's not able to make his big plays. Then we get back into what's worrying about Dak Prescott. That Dak Prescott struggles on 3rd and longs. When he gets put behind the marker and when he has to make a big throw to continue the series, that is where we see him start to get in trouble more and more. And that's when his interception rates go up. And yes, last year was an anomaly of how many interceptions he threw. But going into this new season, if we say the O-line doesn't come to a resolution, that Zach Martin does not return to this Cowboys team, that Tyler Biadasz has to miss some time because of injury, because Terrence Steele is coming back. Tyron Smith is aging. If you worry about the little holes popping up on this defense, and the holes are not holes they're opening for running backs. The holes are glaring holes that any defense can attack. And then you say, well, what we want to do is get the ball downfield to CeeDee Lamb and to Brandon Cooks and to Michael Gallup. That's what we want to do. We want to get the ball downfield. We know CeeDee Lamb came out earlier and said, y'all better watch out for that deep ball. Dak's throwing him deep. Well, if you don't have a running game and you don't have an O-line and all these things that you kind of thought were there but you didn't want to invest in, that you decided Dan Quinn's a much better salesman to Jerry Jones. I think we can all see that Dan Quinn is selling, I need this player, I need this money for this player. I need this, and I'm going to give you the best defense in the league. And Dan Quinn, I'll give him credit. I think he can put together the best defense in the league. He's drafted well. We know Mazi Smith is dealing with an injury now as well. Hopefully nothing major for him, as well as Tyler Biadasz. I don't want to, wish any ill on either one of them. Hopefully they're both minor injuries. Mazi Smith, I believe, they're doing a precursory MRI, basically a precautionary MRI to check out, see if there's any damage because he's been dealing with tendonitis in his knee. Not something you really want to hear about a rookie, but hopefully something they'll be able to figure out a treatment plan for and something going forward for Mazi Smith, because he is going to be a big part of this defense if he can draw double teams, and if he can not even draw double teams, but basically take up two people, what a great defensive tackle can do, which is push his way and take two offensive linemen out of the equation, opening it up for a linebacker to come inside or opening up for a D-end and edge rusher to get in there. You hope that that's what Mazi Smith is going to be able to do this season. Back to Zach Martin, back to this O-line. When you see Tyler Biadasz go down, and hopefully not a major injury, and you see that Terrence Steele is coming off an injury, Tyron Smith had one last year. You have a sophomore season now in Tyler Smith. For Jerry Jones, I don't know, as much as Zach Martin doesn't have any real leverage in this negotiation, because he was the highest paid right guard, he's the highest paid offensive guard in football when he gets his 6-year, $84 million contract. Now the contract gets reset last year or 2 years ago, and now he wants to get back into it. And the real problem is, when you look at his contract, I don't think, if he had not restructured this deal and been given some more cash and gotten a little bit more signing bonuses and been able to spread things around and work with the team and renegotiate and restructure this contract, I believe 4 different times. He has a restructure bonus of $11.8 million on this contract. If you say, well, he's got all these bonuses for restructuring and working for the team, and now he wants more on top of that, Jerry says, man, we've done this. We've reworked your contract 4 different times. You've helped us out. We appreciate it, but every time we do it, we have a mutual understanding that you're going to get something back from us. You will get something back that we need to give to you, right? We need to give you some straight money. We're just going to give you some money right now. Write a check. You'll get that money instead of a salary. You can go off, buy your house, buy some cars, put your money and invest it. You can grow your own money. You can do all of those things. But when you come back and you now want to restructure the deal another time, but basically just for yourself, I think Jerry Jones in a position, knowing that next season his cap hit and his restructure going into 2024 is starting to look pretty bad. And he's supposed to be having a $23 million cap hit next season. So if you put more money on top of that, that's pretty painful. And he's already got a restructure cap hit of $10 million in 2025 and $5 million in 2026. Now, how much more money are we putting on that? And how much more money am I guaranteeing to pay you over these years? And at what point is it you're just taking advantage? And again, you may be the best right guard in the game right now. Madden does. Madden thinks you are. The Madden Raiders think you're the best right guard in the game right now. They think you're best offensive guard in the game right now. One of the best offensive linemen in the game right now is what Madden says, giving you a 99 rating. But as much as I've made fun of Jerry Jones in the past for being a guy who looks at Madden ratings and that's the reason he wants to sign you, this is not the case for Zach Martin right now. I don't know where the bad blood is coming from, but it seems to be something important, and it is something that the Cowboys really need to find out about, because we talk about the offensive line not being there. We talk about not maybe able to get the running game because you only have a Tony Pollard who we don't know if he can be the bruiser and get in there if guys are getting penetration. Is he going to be able to break tackles in the backfield if the O-line is not able to hold on some of these pass plays? And on an RPO or on a draw play or on something where you're trying to do something sneaky, how many times is he going to be able to break those tackles? And then you look over at the tight end position and the fact that the Cowboys have lost Dalton Schultz. They were not able to keep him. They franchise tagged him last year. They can't do it again this year. He goes to Houston. But they don't now have – they have Jake Ferguson. Schoonmaker is now at practice. They've got some guys they're working on. But do we have a tight end in Dallas that can make Dallas Cowboys fans comfortable and can be a real security blanket for those times when the O-line breaks down this season, for the times that Dak Prescott is under pressure? Do they have that tight end? Here's Mike McCarthy on the tight ends at practice yesterday.
Yeah, I think the tight end position, I mean, if you just look at the history of the passing game and, going back to the early days of the West Coast offense, I mean, the tight end throws start right here. So the completion percentage, the connection that, every quarterback has with his tight end. I mean, you look at throughout the history of, just look at our current league and look at some of these quarterback tight end relationships and how productive they are, and the ability to be on the same page because, they're tighter windows but they're also shorter throws, bigger targets. And we really like our group. And, I think they all have something to offer.
Does it have to be one guy or is there a tight end by committee kind of?
Well, I just, just look at the youth of our room. I think it's clear on what our approach will be, and it'll be important for, really the offense and defense as far as moving forward. I mean, we got some young rooms that guys need to play a lot this preseason. So, in the tight end rooms is one I'm excited to see go play.
So he can't really answer the question there at the end of, all right, do you have a guy? Is there a tight end? Do you have your guy? Can't answer that question. Says, it's one of those rooms. It's one of those rooms like many. In preseason, we're going to have to play a lot of guys. And hoping, basically, that his problem is solved. And it goes to what I feel Mike McCarthy has in common with Jerry Jones. And Jerry Jones has gotten slightly better with this. But Mike McCarthy is in the same camp now. When they talk about the kicker and the press availability, when they talk about tight end, and when you talk about Zach Martin, and when you talk about all these things, everything kind of comes back to, we hope this works. We don't really have a contingency plan if it doesn't. But we hope this works this season. We hope. We hope that we find a good kicker and he plays well for us. We hope that our running back comes back this year and is healthy and can play a full season and can get all the snaps. We hope that Zach Martin stops holding out. We hope that we find a tight end and we have a tight end rotation that can go out there and play. And we hope that Dak Prescott can take that next step in his progression. Dan Quinn's not a hope guy. Dan Quinn is going out. He is finding the pieces that he needs to get. He has improved the depth. He says I don't hope that Boss Man Fats becomes a better cornerback over the offseason. I don't hope that we find another solution at the other side of defensive back. No. We go out and we get Gilmore. We go get a guy, and I don't have to hope anymore. There's no hope anymore. We're there, and I think Jerry's getting better. You get the Brandon Cooks deal, and it's a good deal. They paid a lot of money. The Texans paid a lot of money that was owed left. It's a great deal for the Cowboys to get Brandon Cooks in there, and that's in the right move where you're not hoping that Michael Gallup returns to form like you did last year, and he didn't. You're not hoping for that anymore. And the more you see of what's happening with this offense in Dallas versus this defense, the more I'm inclined to believe that Mike McCarthy will not finish the season as a Dallas Cowboys head coach. Taking over play calling seems like it's a last-ditch effort. Taking over the play calling seems like it is the last straw to save his hide when going to Jerry Jones and saying, why didn't it happen? And when he was asked, well, do you have regrets about last year's play calling? I mean, you got rid of Kellen Moore. You decided to part ways with Kellen Moore. So clearly there were some things you didn't like. Were there regrets that you didn't step in, or were there regrets because you're saying that you needed to call plays because Kellen Moore wasn't getting the job done? That's what you're telling me. And his response wasn't exactly full force that he says, oh, no, we have things we want to change. And I get you're not going to come out and say, hey, yeah, no, we're not going to we're not going to try these little gimmickier plays. We don't want to, waste so much time. You don't want to give away what your game plan is. I get that. But I also don't necessarily like this answer either. Here's Mike McCarthy at practice yesterday when he was asked about any regrets in the play calling last season.
No, not really. You remember, I was still involved. I think it's like anything. I mean, as an assistant to the play caller, which is the role you're in, regardless of your title. One guy gets the call on offense. One guy gets called on defense, and then there's a level of responsibility on special teams. Based on how you're designed on game day. So trust me, I know what it's like to be in that seat. No two people never call the game the same. Yeah, so I never felt like that, because a lot of things in play calling is the direction that you go during the course of a game. So with that, I was comfortable with the way the games were called.
He was comfortable with the way the games were called, but we had to get rid of Kellen Moore. Our O-line is not where it needs to be, but I'm impressed with them. Our tight ends, we're not there yet. We're going to need some help, but I'm excited to watch them play. It sounds like there's a lot of hope without a lot of solutions on this offense. I'm not worried about the defense. I'm not worried about Dan Quinn. But this Cowboys offense is just, I don't know if you're going to be able to use the weapons that you have without shooting yourself in the foot first because you didn't prepare for inevitabilities. Jerry Jones, when he said earlier, well, you could have lost Zach Martin because of injury. So you just have to go on and figure out what you're going to do. Well, what were you going to do? What was your plan if any of these offensive linemen go down with injury? Did you have a contingency plan? Were you ready? Because it doesn't seem like you are, because the reports are not positive about what's happening with a lot of this O-line and how the offense is flowing at training camp. We keep getting reports of how many interceptions Dak Prescott's throwing, and I get it's training camp. I don't think he'll throw as many interceptions in game. Dan Quinn teaches his defense really well. They know what's happening on the offensive plays. They've seen what Dak Prescott and the plays are running. It's easy to jump them, and if you have a guy like Trayvon Diggs and some of these other ball hawks out there, they'll be fine. I'm just not sold on Mike McCarthy being able to be the guy to rally the troops when you have a player who's one of your best O-linemen who's not showing up, when you have several players returning from injury that you were expecting to be top-level players, even though we saw last year when you were expecting Michael Gallup to step up and be that number 2 receiver coming off of injury, and he just couldn't hack it all year. And hopefully he'll be better this year. He'll go back into being that 3 slot. Hopefully he will be better. I don't know. I'm not sold on this Cowboys offense. I will tell you, we did get some notes here from the Texans. We'll scoot over to the Texans for a minute. The Texans did release their unofficial depth chart. They play the Thursday game, so they're one of the first teams to put out their depth chart. We heard the news yesterday that C.J. Stroud is going to be the starter against the Patriots on Thursday. Some other notes. At wide receiver on the unofficial depth chart, we have Nico Collins and Robert Woods as your 1 and 2 wide receiver, your 2 receivers on the outside. Tank Dell and Noah Brown are actually listed as 3 and 4. And John Mechie is basically your number 3 receiver on one of your sides. That's fallen down. He's on there with Xavier Hutchinson. You can understand that, the progress you coming back from battling leukemia, to get back in the shape you need to be in, to get back in the rhythm you need to be in. It's understandable. It could take time. But I think by where he's placed right now, I wouldn't count on this season him being a major factor. Hopefully he will be. Hopefully he battles back. He continues to grow. Hopefully he will come back and be a big part of it. But I would say right now when you're looking at John Mechie, I would put expectations a little bit lower. This is all based off of just the fact that he's low on a depth chart. I get it. Tank Dell, I'm very excited to see what he does. D'Amico Ryans was talking big about that. Robert Woods, we will see if he's able to play at a higher level or if they put him at number 1 and he's not able to. It's going to be interesting to see how teams defend him and Nico Collins if that is the 2 wide receivers you're sticking out there. And then you have Dalton Schultz as your tight end and how much they put emphasis on him because he's probably the most proven receiver that the Texans have. Another note on this chart, Juice Scruggs, the rookie they drafted at center, is listed as the starting center, giving you your starting O-line of Laramie Tunsil, Kenyon Green, Juice Scruggs, Shaq Mason, and Titus Howard. A amazing all-name team. Laramie, Kenyon, Juice, Shaq, and Titus is a fantastic all-name team for your O-line. I know Titus Howard has been dealing with a hand injury, but he is still listed as your number 1 starter at right tackle. Will Anderson is listed as well to get the start. A pretty young defensive starting lineup. We see Blake Cashman. He started 1 game last year, played in 16 games, only starts 1. He is getting the start at the strong side linebacker. We will see Christian Harris, the young man, 22 years old, is playing at the weak side linebacker, and Perryman at the Mike linebacker as well. I think there's some interesting things. And Steven Sims is going to be your kick and punt returner, guy who did it for a couple years in Washington, and then I believe he went to the Steelers last year, is coming over to the Texans to see if he is able to do that. They do not have Tank Dell. They have Tank Dell as the 3rd-string punt returner. I'll be curious to see if they give him any carries at punt returner as well. It's time now, before we go to break, let's introduce the Big Fat Poll of the day.
Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day on the Horn.
All right, so we have heard the story all day today. Kevin Brown, the play-by-play and studio announcer for the Baltimore Orioles, reportedly suspended indefinitely for basically just stating straight-up facts that the Orioles have sucked for many years at playing in Tampa Bay. There's nothing crazy about that. Who didn't know the Orioles? Like, you have the number 1 pick. You can't celebrate the number 1 pick and not say you sucked last year. Look, I'm a Spurs fan. I'll tell you we sucked last year. And I'll tell you we didn't tank either. We just had a down year. We had a down year, but we'll be back next year. But we see that Kevin Brown gets suspended indefinitely. Everybody unequivocally has come out and said this is ridiculous. That ownership is so thin-skinned that they said, hey, we don't want you saying anything negative about our team. We're finally good. We're the number 1 team in the American League. You can't be saying those things. Trying to put a distraction, overshadow your young team. Today's poll of the day with the Angelos, Peter Angelo, the owner of the Orioles, getting up in this conversation. Who is the worst owner in American sports today? I'm trying to keep it to America. I'm sure there are some terrible owners overseas. We'll try and keep it to American sports, NBA, MLB, NFL, NHL. Maybe if you have another one, a smaller one that is just a terrible owner, and I want it current owners. So no Dan Snyder, no Marge Schott, no Donald Sterling. Who is your worst owner in American sports today? Text us in. 512-337-3776 is the number. Yesterday's poll on who had the greatest sports debut ever was a pretty big landslide for Wilt Chamberlain, who dominated in his beginning days in the Philadelphia Warriors. That was an amazing one. Thanks for everybody's participation on that one yesterday. But join us on the Specs text line, 512-337-3776. Who is the worst owner in American sports today? That is Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. When we come back, we're going to play a little clip from earlier in the day. Ian Rabi talked to Pete Fiutik, the publisher of College Football News. It was a really good discussion this morning, talking some college football. We'll be talking about that coming back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Back on the Sports Complex, our musical theme of the week, best debuts in music history. And this is the Ramones, their debut, probably one of their biggest hits too, Blitzkrieg Bob for the Ramones. We'll be playing those all throughout the week until we get to Friday, and then we'll keep doing 512 Friday. But we're trying some things as we kick off the first week, the debut week of the Sports Complex. We are going to try out some different things as we keep going. And we love your feedback on the Specs text line 512-337-3776. Got a lot of great comments so far of the worst owner in sports today. Some of you are going, I can tell past, I saw Bud Adams in there, and I agree. I get it. I get he's not a current owner, but man, I get it. I fully understand the hatred to Bud Adams. I get it. So keep sending those 512-337-3776. Patrick's big fat poll of the day. We'll take those answers, take some of the best, put them up on social media, Twitter and Instagram on the Horns page, and everybody can vote for the worst owner in American sports today, kind of in honor of Kevin Brown, who was suspended for doing nothing wrong at all, and a thin-skinned billionaire trying to ruin his day. The owner of the Orioles, the Peter Angelos, I believe is his name. We will get to those answers. I do want to play something from the morning show. Really good interview from this morning. They had Ian Rodby had on Pete Fiutak. He's a publisher of collegefootballnews.com. They talked about a lot of different topics in college football. So let's listen to that interview. We'll come back, and then we will talk a little bit more about the worst owners in American sports history.
Let's go to the Vaqueros hotline, talk some college football on our Horn Top 20 with one of our faves. He's the publisher of collegefootballnews.com. He is Pete Fiutak. Pete, how are you, man?
Yes, the Pro Football Focus that loved Marcus Mariota is possibly the greatest pro prospect quarterback they've ever seen. So I look, I live in Chicago. I experienced Mitchell Trubisky. The North Carolina quarterback thing is nice. Drake May is awesome. But come on, no. Caleb Williams is the best quarterback in college football. You take Caleb Williams off that team, and they were good. They certainly weren't in the college football playoff hunt good. But plus, yeah. So going into the season, yeah, North Carolina, to jump on what you were talking about, May's great. I mean, that's why they're in the top 20. But they still don't have a defense. So they're very good, but they're there because the voters know who Drake May is.
Yes, and they open with South Carolina, which would be a great game to start the season in 23 days. That game in Charlotte. South Carolina finished where North Carolina finished with 4 straight losses. South Carolina finished great last year with wins over Clemson, and I think who else did they beat late last year? Tennessee. They beat Tennessee down the stretch.
Yeah, they screwed up. They completely screwed up 2 college football players, because if Clemson doesn't collapse to South Carolina, they end up beating North Carolina, and they're in the college football playoff instead of Ohio State. And Tennessee, if they didn't get their doors rocked by that in that game, they would have had kind of the theoretical argument that was probably a team deserving of the top 4. So, yeah, South Carolina messed up a couple of big teams last year.
They're an interesting team to watch. Pete Fiutak is with us. And defense, the question for Mac Brown's team off a 9-win team. What do you think their ceiling is as we have them at number 19 in our countdown, Pete?
Their ceiling is to get to the ACC championship and lose badly, because that's kind of what they do.
That's what Mac Brown does.
Well, you know what, Mac Brown, I mean, he's been great. I mean, look, he's been able to restore the glory, but there's all sorts of crazy fun stats about what the record under Mac Brown was compared to, say, like Herm Edwards for a stretch there. And Herm Edwards ended up getting canned, and Mac Brown is still Mac Brown. But he's been good, but there's a hard ceiling on where this team has been able to go. But Clemson's the star of the ACC. Florida State's right behind that. I think Pitt is kind of the most dangerous team lurking behind those top 2. And in an ACC without divisions, and it's just the top 2 teams, Clemson, Florida State are probably going to play twice.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about Florida State. I'm glad that's a nice little segue there. We've been hearing a lot about Florida State and some of the decision makers and realignment and what they want to do. What are your thoughts about Florida State? I mean, they have some of the best overall talent in the country right now. Just kind of looking at that roster. What are your thoughts about how far Florida State can take it this year?
Yeah, there's a couple of problems with all that. First of all, they might be screaming and yelling, but they're stuck in this grant of rights deal through 2036. So unless they want to pony up about $135 million, which is possible, Texas and Oklahoma did it to get out a year early from the Big 12. So that, or unless someone can find a loophole, they're sort of stuck, in the ACC, and they're just kind of complaining to try to get more money right now. But talent-wise, they're there. You're right. They're very good. The problem is, they've got a ton of talent, and Clemson has more. That Clemson defensive front, they've got more than that's. They've got about 5 different guys who should go in the top 50 of the NFL draft coming up. So that Clemson thing is going to be more dangerous. The problem with the Tigers, they still have to make sure they got a wide receiver who can catch the deep ball, and they could use another corner. They don't use the transfer portal. So Florida State's got to be able to take advantage of that early. But the problem with Florida State is they start with LSU and they have to go to Clemson. They might start the year 2-2, and they still have a bunch of quirky games to go. They still have to go to Pitt, and that's in November. And if it's snowing, the guys from Tallahassee probably aren't going to like that. And then they still got to deal with the finishing kick game against Florida. So I like them. I kind of see them more 8-4-ish as opposed to being this 11-1 team that could be on the outside in the mix of the college football playoff.
No question. Pete Fiutak is with us. ACC, I don't say loaded, but they do have 2 top 10 teams in the preseason coaches poll with that Clemson team quarterbacked by a local product here from Austin, Cade Klubnik. There at Clemson, and then Florida State, Pittsburgh, always kind of a sleeper team for Pat Narduzzi. Not North Carolina. Can they find some defense to go with Drake May? Pete, real quick, I saw a tweet from your Twitter handle, which, by the way, is at Pete Fiutak, and that is spelled Fiutak, is where you'll find Pete. But you had a tweet about the ACC and not doing its job if they don't look into Stanford and Cal now that the Pac-12 has fallen apart completely. They're down to 4 teams. And, what do you make of that? Can the ACC try to appease some of their membership and add some more revenue by going west? Is that something you think is actually feasible?
It's possible, but they're going to have to do some hard work to get there. But that's kind of where things are going. I mean, look, in the read the room category, everyone's yelling at the Pac-12 for not being forward-thinking enough, and now they're done. And so the ACC, what they're doing is either they can get Stanford, Cal, Washington State, and Oregon State, and open up a Western branch of the ACC, which is what the Big Ten's doing with its Pac-12 gets, which is the way you need to do things. You need to expand the footprint. You need to expand the markets. You need to get first of all, the base, the eyeballs, and the student bodies who can look nationally a little bit better. And this would accomplish all of that. And you kind of lost in all this are the academic side, which is what makes the college presidents happy. And so the conference of Duke and Wake Forest and Virginia and Miami and all those great academic institutions. If you're adding Stanford, the number 1 ranked FBS school by U.S. News and World Report, and Cal, which I believe is 9th among all 133 FBS schools, all of a sudden you've got a pretty good thing there. And the Bay Area, which I know nobody there really cares about college athletics, but look at the Big Ten getting Rutgers. It's about markets. And you get a little bit something else with Washington State and Oregon State with 2 rabid fan bases who are going to be loving the fact that they're in something like this. So it would be a fantastic move if they could figure out how to pull this off.
Does make a lot of sense. It's a long way with the Atlantic Coast Conference with 2 schools on the Pacific Coast, but that's college football these days, and college athletics and the academic things certainly line up. Hey, Pete, while we have you, you get your good thumbnail on the ACC. Yesterday we talked Texas Tech at number 20 at the back end of our top 20 countdown. Texas Tech Red Raiders with their quarterback back in the Big 12. What do you make of Get Your Guns Up? Are they a team to watch with Joey McGuire in year 2?
Absolutely. That is a fun team. Everything is in place. I am a huge Tyler Shough fan. He's one of those guys who kind of, along with DJ Uiagalelei, if you're looking for who's this year's possible Joe Burrow, who's that guy who, has been kind of lurking, pretty good, but has all the tools where if it all comes together, the scouts are going to be like, wait a minute, there's a guy with everything a number one overall draft pick should have. Obviously, everyone's in love with Caleb Williams, and obviously everyone's in love with Drake May. But in terms of just the raw tools, Kalashuk is it. And they've got that offense that can absolutely light things up. The problem, however, even before all the expansion kicks in, is look from top to the bottom of the Big 12. Where is your free space game? You don't have like a Stanford. You don't have a Northwestern. You don't have, West Virginia, if that's your basically maybe your worst team. Who else? Kansas? Maybe Iowa State, who's a lot better, even without Hunter Deckers. So Texas Tech is very, very good. So is everyone else. So, but that is one of those teams that absolutely, can come in the season and think that if you look at the history of Texas Tech, there's not a lot there in terms of ever winning anything. This might be the year where they can kind of break through. I'm not going to say they're going to be TCU, but they can certainly be right up there with Texas and maybe Oklahoma if they turn things around to be right in the mix for at least to get to the Big 12 championship.
Hey, Pete, one of the programs has gotten a lot of hype in the offseason, some good, some bad. Texas A&M Aggies in our neck of the woods, people talk a lot about the Aggies these days, especially with the hiring of Bobby Petrino. What are your thoughts about how Petrino will affect that offense, and what are your thoughts about how the Aggies are going to finish in the SEC?
And that's got to be everything. Look, it worked for a while. The controlled tempo, slow and go offense. In 2020, it should have gotten into the college football playoff. They probably deserved it more than Notre Dame did. But obviously, it's just stagnant because when it doesn't work, their problem was if the other side could get to about 20 points, they had a hard time keeping up the pace more often than not. And now, at least the offense is going to have a whole lot more, better paced offense. And they've got the guys. Now, all those great recruiting classes of recent vintage haven't come through yet, but they've got enough talent on the lines. They got enough talent everywhere else. But the key is going to be, and the question last year, and it's still there, where are the proven skill players? Where are the deep guys, deep bench of guys who can really crank up that attack? And then the other problem, kind of like I just mentioned with the Big 12, where's your easy game? Where's your free space game in the SEC West this season? And because there isn't one. So look, it stinks to live in the SEC West, because that's probably a 9 to 10-ish win team that's going to have to battle to get to 8 wins with this schedule they got.
He is Pete Fiutak. We'd be remiss if we didn't ask about Texas. They're picked to win the Big 12 by the media. We were calling it the all-gas, no excuses year for Steve Sarkisian.
Nice.
Seems to have all the pieces, and Quinn Ewers has to play well at quarterback. What's your opinion of Texas?
Yeah, you nailed it with your line there. Mine is it's an 11-win team and a 9-win body. It's there. They've got everything is right. There's no real excuse. Texas and USC are kind of in the same boat where they're better than everyone. They have more talent than everyone. That's the team that should be 11-1 and playing in the conference championship with a shot to go to the college football playoff. And they were close last year. It kind of gets lost in how the season ended up. That they were, even the losses, they were right there. They should have beaten Alabama. They were really close in the other games, and now they just have to make that one extra little step and start winning all those close games. So at the very least, let me put it this way: in a loaded Big 12 with everyone pretty good, including the newbies. Put Texas, they're kind of the team that's going to be in the Big 12 championship, and then find that other team. It's just a question of whether they get there with one loss or not, with a chance of the college football playoff.
Pete, always appreciate it. It's good to hear you. We'll do it again on our way to number one. Always great analysis, and appreciate you jumping on with us. Appreciate you.
Am I jumping ahead and saying you have Georgia number one? I should.
We probably should. I think we do. That's not for 20 more shows.
There's Georgia and everyone else this year. But yes, this should be a fun season no matter what.
You don't like Michigan to potentially be able to dethrone Georgia?
Or yeah, maybe. Because remember, Ohio State. Noah Ruggles hits that kick straight, and Ohio State's winning the national championship last year, not Georgia. So it's possible. But talent-wise, yeah, Georgia's just ridiculous.
Different level. Hey, Pete Fiutak, Fiutak is how you find him on Twitter, at Pete Fiutak. The College Football News, which is part of the SI Media Group, is a great website for college football junkies like a lot of you out there, and we are for sure. Thank you, Pete.
Thanks, Pete.
Anytime, guys. Have a good one.
There you go from Ian Rod B this morning. You can hear him every morning, 6 to 11 a.m. right here on the Horn. And we're going to be right back giving some of your answers you gave us on the text line, 512-337-3776. To text Patrick's Big Fat Poll of the day. Who is the worst owner in American sports today? We got some of your answers. We'll give them back to you, and we'll start to put together our list that we're going to put up for the poll right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn. Back on the Sports Complex on the Horn, playing some songs that are debut hits, debut singles from some of the best bands in the world. Of course, Creep with Radiohead, or Radiohead with Creep. I'll say it the right way. We got a lot of great answers from you guys of who is the worst owner in sports today. We're talking about it. Kevin Brown, the Orioles play-by-play guy, has been suspended indefinitely for apparently just saying that that the Orioles were not historically good in the last few years in Tampa Bay, which in all reality, it seems like the Orioles were not very good anywhere. I don't know how many did they go into him. They're like, "Hey man, could you just lie to the people because we want them to pretend thin-skinned owners." Thin-skinned owners, I don't get it. We've guys got some good text in though. I do appreciate your joining in with me here and joining in the fun. 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. We got some names. Bob Nutting, the Pittsburgh Pirates. Yeah, the Pirates have been historically, they're one of the many teams in MLB that MLB has these owners that are basically, they're all the guys who go, we're very rich but we're not rich enough to compete because we don't have an endless bank account. So instead of selling the team to someone who could, we just prefer that you make the rules so the game is worse for everybody and the players all make less money so that we can make more money. That would be perfect for us. And we're just going to hold a franchise. We're just going to hold a franchise hostage until you do that. That's easy. It's Donald Sterling. Donald Sterling, no longer an owner, was out. But yes, he is definitely on the list of the worst owners of all time, for sure. Bud Adams, I know you said it must be current, but we could dig him up again, just give him the award, and then shoot him again. You know what? I'm not opposed to that. We could throw in Bud Adams' kids, because Bud Adams' kids are the ones who thought it was a good idea to wear Oilers stuff against the Texans in Houston. They thought that. So how about we throw in the Adams kids that just inherited a franchise and are dancing on the graves of so many great Oilers fans. The owner of the Oakland A's, that is John Fisher. I believe he's got his money from the Gap. Yeah, he is a pretty awful owner, just ruining the team. We'll get into that in a little bit. I got some sound from Bruce Bochy talking about how it is to play in Oakland and having to whisper in the dugout because anybody can hear what you're saying. Tillman Fertitta from the Rockets. He's only owned it since 2017. I'll give him a hope that he's going to turn it around now. He's not been good so far. So far, he's on the negative list and he's headed downhill. But I'll give him that there's hope. I will give that there is hope there. All the Green Bay residents, this texter says, each and every one suck, and that's from a Bears fan. I don't think they're going to make the list. I don't think they're going to make the list, but I understand your hatred. We get Jerry Jones and Jim Irsay both on the list. We know Jerry Jones. He's not one of the worst owners in sports. He's one of the most frustrating. The question is, who's one of the most frustrating owner in sports today? Then it is Jerry Jones. I think frustrating wise, because he just keeps saying dumb stuff. But I won't give him that he is the worst. And Jim Irsay, he's won titles, so I can't give it to him either. Jerry Jones, Jim Crane, and Mark Cuban. I don't get the hate on Jim Crane. I get he's not going to spend all the money, but he's brought the Astros some titles, so I'll give him. And Mark Cuban, I won't give it to him either. But I can understand why people are not a fan of Mark Cuban. Hal Steinbrenner, a lot of people in New York believe in that right now. Didn't make any big moves at the trade deadline. And we have Mark Davis. Al Davis should have given up Mark for adoption in those give the baby up boxes in the local fire departments. Yeah, I don't know if I go that far, but Mark Davis has not helped out the Raiders and hiring John Gruden and then hiring Josh McDaniels, two of the most baffling hires. I cannot believe that. Do fantasy football owners count? No, they do not count. But there's plenty of them. Dan Snyder, not on our list because he's not a current owner. And Michael Jordan, not on our list because not a current owner. But both are terrible suggestions. I like them because they both were terrible owners, but they have both just sold their teams. So they're now off our list. So right now we've got on our list Mark Davis from the Raiders and Bob Nutting from the Pirates, John Fisher from the A's, Tillman Fertitta from the Rockets, Jerry Jones from the Cowboys, Jim Irsay from the Colts. A lot of football teams in here. Hal Steinbrenner from the Yankees. I think we got some more out there. I'll do some of my research. You guys do yours. Join us back. We're going to talk about UT football. I've got some sound from Sark. I've got some sound from some other contributors and a little bit more Kool-Aid drinking. We'll give you a little bit more sugar for that Kool-Aid. We come back here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 1019 AM 1260, live, local, and digital on the Horn app and at hornfm.com. he has a list of James Dolan has this list of guys that he is completely against, and he has got facial recognition technology at Madison Square Garden, is what they are saying, what many people have alleged, and they are saying that he is basically not allowing them in, and there's levels to this. So the reports are that there's levels of he will bring you into his, like, they will come in and they'll give you a warning to be like, hey, stop, posting stuff about James Dolan being a bad owner. And then there's like, well, you can go escalate to being banned. It can be escalated to being physically removed, and like there's a bunch of different levels apparently to this, but he does it with facial recognition technology. It's crazy. So yeah, send in your stuff on the worst owner, your suggestions for the worst current owner in sports right now. We'll be going over that. I do want to get into some Texas football sound. Sark was available to the press yesterday, talked about some things, and some of this stuff kind of really started to, we're getting a little bit closer to the season, and the first cut I want to play for you was something of, I wasn't expecting this name to be somebody that is entering the conversation as much as he is, even before the season starts, much less during his freshman season. But we're talking about Johntay Cook, and Sark had to talk about Johntay Cook, and here's what he had to say at availability yesterday.
Well, I think something when you first arrive and you're a 5-star and you're here in spring ball, one, they have really good coaches at DeSoto, and he's been coached in a way that he believes in. And then you go to a new system or scheme, just like when our guys leave us, then it's about doing things the way that organization wants it done, whether it's a specific route or a scheme or whatever. And what I've loved about Johntay right now is how coachable he is. I think he's really trying to do what we're asking of him to do, and then when he doesn't do it the right way, he acknowledges that and tries to do it again better the next time. But I just think there's a level of comfort schematically. I think that it's making sense to him, what we're asking of him, and then he's making the most of his opportunities. Not perfect, like, this time of camp with receivers, how do we minimize the drops? How do we take advantage of opportunities, 50-50 balls? And so those things are going to happen. But when you're playing fast and you have an idea of knowing what to do and you're coachable and you're not making the same mistakes twice, you give yourself an opportunity to be successful in this system. And that's what's showing up for him.
So Johntay Cook, a topic of conversation multiple times during the press availability yesterday. And Johntay Cook was somebody that you thought, he may have an impact, but with how logjammed that wide receiver room seems this year, when you have Xavier Worthy, who some people have on their Heisman list, when you have Jordan Whittington, who didn't get the ball nearly enough last year, but we know is an amazing wide receiver. He's the most experienced wide receiver there and can do so much for you that even if you're not throwing the ball his way, you want to put him on the field because he's one of the best blocking wide receivers probably in college football. And there's so many things he can do for you that even if you're not even throwing it his way, you want to have Jordan Whittington on the field. You get Isaiah Neyor is coming back from injury. All reports are that he's progressing nicely. So you'll be able to get him coming back. That's another piece that adds another deep threat. You have A.D. Mitchell, who looked great in the spring game. Reports are that he looks great in practice. A lot of people saying he could move up and have a really good year for the Longhorns as well. And so if we say that all of those guys are going to demand touches and many snaps, because, we'll say again, Jordan Whittington, I think he needs to get the ball more. I think we've talked about it before, of trying to use the, short game a little bit more and the quick game a little bit more. And Jordan Whittington is a perfect guy for yards after catch, so many things he can do. So I would love to see him get more targets. Even if he doesn't, though, even if he doesn't get those targets, he's going to be on the field. Like there's not a better wide receiver to have out there that can block, that for running screens and things like that. You also throw in JT Sanders, we'll get to in a second. JT Sanders, another guy who's going to get a ton of targets. I wasn't sure Johntay Cook was going to get a ton. Now you want to involve him because he is highly recruited, because he is vocal, because he is somebody that can turn to be one of your best recruiters going into next season and the season after that. And there's two ways you can kind of keep a guy on your team if they're that, if they're all that and they want to get the ball, they want to play, is you give them playing time and you win. And sometimes if you're winning but they're not getting all the playing time, they'll be okay because they know their time's coming, especially for a freshman. They don't need to transfer out necessarily after their first season. You know what? The paycheck's okay. I'm getting my NIL money. I'm getting, we're working into it. A couple of these guys are going to be gone. It's going to open up the room for me. I'm going to be the number one receiver next year. I'm fine with it. But you got to win. You can't lose and not play the guy. But it seems now that the Texas Longhorns could be playing Jonte Cook, and he could be party to work into these plans. Sark is talking about him pretty highly. I would love to see him get in there because it just gives you another weapon. Just gives you another weapon. And when you throw that in with all those wide receivers, and you add in JT Sanders, and you add in the tight end, and you add in that tight end position that is at the level that if you play fantasy football, there's only a few tight ends in the NFL who can be that level of contributor, that standard of a contributor, because we're not talking Dalton Schultz, a guy get out there and, look, he's a good safety blanket. We're talking about a game-changing tight end. There's not that many of them that exist, and JT Sanders is showing all signs that he is not only going to be what he was last year, but could even improve and play even better this season.
Inevitably, we've got some pretty good weapons. I'm not shy in saying that. We try to build a roster that is complete, and I think that we now have a really good receiving core to go along with JT and him building off of what his first 2 years look like. I always remember, for whatever reason, everyone kept asking me about him his freshman year like he was some sort of disappointment or something because he wasn't starting and catching a bunch of balls. And I kept saying he's developing at the position. And then so last year he goes out and catches 55 balls. But we kind of feel like there's so much more room for growth for him. Like he can still go to another level. He's such a dynamic playmaker. He's got great hands. And the biggest thing to me is he's so smart. JT Sanders is probably one of the smarter players on the offensive side of the ball for us. He's got an extremely high football IQ. We ask a lot of him. He understands what we're trying to do when we call specific plays, and then he runs his routes accordingly. So I think it does lend itself to where there could be some more opportunities for him down the field because of his understanding of coverages to go along with his physical ability to go do those types of things.
When you talk about JT Sanders evolving, and you talk about his potential this season at tight end, another year with Quinn Ewers, and you look at what the top tight ends in the NFL do, the last thing Sark says in that clip is about understanding defenses and his football IQ. Being able to get yourself open when a play, and you can be, instead of being a safety blanket, I'm just kind of running my out and trying to find an open space. I'm trying to find an open space with open space downfield, and I'm going to keep moving and find a way, and I'm going to pace my steps correctly and be able to make eye contact and be able to do all of these things to get a connection with my quarterback that can take a play that isn't developing right, and when they think they have everything guarded and they not sure, and you miss that window, and even if Xavier Worthy runs a perfect route and he's open and you just miss it, because by the time you see it and by the time you get your back foot planted, that safety's already too close over and you go, I can't put it there. I don't want to risk throwing that interception. I don't need to do it because we have so many weapons. I don't have to go to that. I can go and throw it to a JT Sanders, and he's not in a place where it's a 6-yard gain and guys are creeping over. He's moving. He's shifting the defense even ways they don't know. That makes me very excited for things that can happen with JT Sanders. And it really all comes down to what Sark talks about in this clip. What you want when you put all together A.D. Mitchell and Jonte Cook and Xavier Worthy and Jordan Whittington and Isaiah Neyor and JT Sanders. How do you guard multiple threats?
I'm very comfortable with more than two out there right now on our team. And obviously Xavier, we know what he is. And he's really versatile. Sometimes I think he's almost better in the slot than he is outside. I mean, he's a very versatile player. I think what AD, Isaiah Nair bring is very unique with their length and their ability to make contested catches. I think Jonte sometimes falls into the mold of Xavier, where he's kind of can play inside and or outside, and then Jordan kind of being very comfortable in the slot. And so, for us, if we can deploy 5 people onto the field, you can't double everybody and load the box and stop the run. And so I think that's something that we've been trying to build towards on our roster. We feel like we kind of got it right this year. And now the quarterback understanding distributing the ball and getting those guys the ball in space, because all those guys I'm mentioning, JT included, and all those runners, they're hard tackles in space. They're hard people to get on the ground in space. So if we can deploy people right on the field and we can get the ball to them in a timely fashion accurately, not only should we get completions, I think we can create some run after the catch better than we have in the last couple of seasons.
Run after the catch. Come on, Sark. That's the stuff I'm talking about. Run after the catch. I don't need all deep threats. I don't need all bombs. I want the bomb. I know I want the bomb. We all want the bomb, Sark. I know you want it more than all of us. You want that. If you could get that if every play was for 45 yards, Sark would be the happiest man alive. I get that. But if you say, hey, man, we can find these threats because we got their 4th defender. They're double teaming over here, and they're trying to figure this out, and we're able to keep shifting who we're able to go after. And you're able to make it that they never know where that next threat is coming from. And God forbid somebody gets hurt, somebody goes down, and they're out for a game or they're out for 2 games, to have someone step in line right behind them and to not have to throw the ball to somebody with a broken hand for half a season. But there's one caveat to this, because all this works great and all the weapons, and there's multiple threats, and it's everything you do, but he mentioned it briefly in this, and it's really the most important part of what's going to be able to dictate how this season looks offensively for the Longhorns, which is we know that the O-line is going to play well. We know that the wide receiver core is one of the best in college football. We know JT Sanders is one of the best tight ends in college football. We believe that Quinn Ewers will be one of the best quarterbacks in college football. And if he's not, Malik Murphy is right behind him. And you figure one of them has to be a really good quarterback. But I think Quinn Ewers is going to be that guy. So if we say those 2 guys, that we have a quarterback, we have an O-line, we have everything else, and the defense can't stop us, what do you need to be able to do it? And it's what you had the last few years that you didn't have to ask for, that you knew was there, and you had 2 of the best of for the last few seasons. You have Bijan Robinson and Roschon Johnson for the last few seasons. You don't have that. You're trying to have to go out and play new running backs. Here's Sark talking about C.J. Baxter, because for me, C.J. Baxter, this running back room, that's pivotal. That's so pivotal to what happens with the Longhorns this coming season.
I think he's come a long way. Again, like a lot of these guys. You mentioned Jonte, you mentioned Anthony Hill, you mentioned C.J. Baxter. When they come from high school, the game changes, right? Everything changes. The nuances, the details, the schemes change. And there's that transition period for them that takes a minute. And like all 3 of these guys, I really credit, because we haven't gone out there with training wheels on the bikes with these guys. We've taken the training wheels off, we've pushed them down the road, and they've fallen some. But now they've learned how to ride the bike. And CJ's no different. He's pass protecting, he's running routes, he's running the ball well. I think he's got a real understanding of systematically what we try to do. When he makes an error, he's very coachable and tries to do it right. But the one thing, like with all 3 of those guys you mentioned, effort is never an issue, right? They play hard. Like Anthony Hill plays hard. CJ Baxter runs hard, plays hard. Jonte runs hard. And so we critique effort first. We can deal with some of the errors, but as long as you're coachable and you give us great effort, we'll get it right with you.
I'll give you one more freshman, Derek.
So there's Sark saying they've got the effort, and effort is great, and being coachable is great, and all those intangibles and the talent and everything is great. When we get to week 2, is Texas going to have a running back? We know in the bowl game, for whatever reason, they didn't play certain guys. They really focused on Keelan Robinson. They didn't use the packages we thought they would use, and it was very evident that the run game was going to be a problem for the Longhorns in that bowl game. Going into next season, you need to have that run game be as stout as possible, because if you allow them to put 2 or 3 guys in that line and just rush and basically let you try and get there, and they want you to try and get 2 yards, and they're able to get pressure on you, you have to be able to pressure them by running the ball. And now hopefully the deep game will come and you'll be able to open up the running game. But we've seen time after time that trying to throw it deep downfield to open up the running game is not working. We've seen it too many times where you just try and do that over and over and over again, and you never focus on getting the running game going so that you can pass it downfield. They just stay back, and then your running game doesn't ever really get going. You keep throwing the ball because you keep going, well, they're loading up on the box for us, and you're not able to get to place. It's a statistical anomaly because you say, well, they're not double-teaming anybody. We don't have any double coverage. They're just having a safety help over. They're not really doubling Xavier Worthy, but the ball's not getting there because it's too windy. It's college football. You're playing in a lot of buildings where there's going to be wind or rain or something else happening. You're going to have to find a way to run the ball, and you cannot lose a game because you do not have the ability to run the ball. So CJ Baxter, the rest of this running back room for the Longhorns, is going to be a big piece of the multiple threats, the ability to not be able to double team and not guard. Part of that is you need a running back room that can carry the ball, get yardage, break tackles, and especially hold on to the football. So as much as there is all the Kool-Aid for the multiple threats, there is a little stand back, a little push of, hey, all right, the running back room, when I hear effort, whenever I hear things that aren't the answer to the question I want, when you hear coach speak, it is a little worrisome. We still got time before the season. He may be holding them to an unrealistic expectation because he did work for the last couple of years with Bijan Robinson. He's got a coach who was coaching. His last 2 running backs were both NFL first-round draft picks in Jahmyr Gibbs and Bijan Robinson. Chart choices, 2 running backs. I get it. I get that, maybe the expectations may be very high, and that's where it is. We'll know when we get to week 1 if we have a running back core that there is a playmaker, because the difference is every other piece of the field, there is a playmaker at wide receiver. There's a playmaker at tight end. If you want to say Kelvin Banks, there's a playmaker there. There's playmakers all over this offense. Quinn Ewers can be a playmaker. Is there a running back playmaker? That is the biggest question for the Longhorns going into the season. I do like another piece that I found to give you a little bit more Kool-Aid. So we'll give you a little bit more Kool-Aid before we go to the break. George Fortenbaugh, who is a betting expert for ESPN, was on ESPN talking about some of his picks and his favorite over-unders, stuff like that. And he was asked about his favorite over. And I'll just play what he said, but I think Texas fans will appreciate that it is not just Texas homers that are drinking some of the Kool-Aid.
Give me the over that has some value.
I'm all the way in on this team, and if I'm wrong, and I've been wrong on them before, then we can play this at the end of the season, but give me over 9.5 wins on Texas. Give me a little bit of Texas to make the playoff at 3-1 as well. This roster's absolutely loaded. I've got them favored in 11 of 12 games this season. They'll be a dog week 2 at Alabama. Now, if they lose that game and run the table, how is the committee going to keep out a one-loss Texas team that's a conference champion on an 11-game winning streak? All right, they want Texas in the playoff, head and shoulders above the rest of the Big 12. Quinn Ewers is going to take a big step forward this year. Really like the win total. Get a little of that 3-1 as well.
Woo. Oh, I like that. I like it when I hear a non-Texas fan come out and tell me that, you know what, I like the win. I think they're an 11-win team. I think that's a 9.5. That's crazy. It's ludicrous to think that 9.5's the line. I know we want to be a double-digit win team. I know that's what we want, and that's where we're set. And we got to be playing for a Big 12 championship. But it's nice to hear somebody come out and say, you know what? I like them in the college football playoff. I like that 3-1 odds. I like to say over 9.5. I like that. I'm a big fan of that. And you may like Joe Fortenbaugh more if you're a Westlake fan, because his next pick was that you should take a bet on Cade Klubnik as a somewhat long shot to win the Heisman. So if you're a Westlake Longhorn fan, this is your guy right now. He is giving you the best betting advice you're going to get. All of that means nothing if there's not a running back room. We got a texter that says, I think there's too many running backs in that room for someone not to succeed. Someone will show out and take the spot. That's the question. I know that they're going to have decent running backs. I want them to have a playmaker, because the whole Sark equation and how we start to take away Coach Steven and how we start to take away that, oh, well, he's just planting himself into a spot that only works if he has the best players, is if he has the best players. And I think you have a lot of those pieces right now. But can he coach a running back room if they're a running back room that needs extra coaching and extra scheming and extra planning, and you need to be able to get those guys pumped up? Can he do that with the help of Tashard Choice? That is where I don't know if Sark can do it, because he's at Texas always had great running backs. And when he was at Alabama, he had great running backs. When he was at USC, he had great running backs. So we don't know if he's able to do it without having, is he able to build that running back? Is he able to get that running back to the next level and find that one and scout out which running back in his own practices is going to be the guy? That is what I want to see Sark do this season. Because if he builds up that running back room and he gets you at least one, man, if he gets you two running backs that can consistently carry the ball, not turn it over, pass block, do everything you need, and even step out, you still have a Keelan Robinson who may be able to step out and get some catches, all of those things. But if you have your back, then it's too many threats. As Rod said this morning, it's a mathematical equation you cannot solve. If you have a star running back, just a factor running back, a running back that can make a big play, and if you have that and you have to set out an extra play, you can't just put a defensive, you can't just put one linebacker and hope it works, because this guy's going to break it, and he's a guy that a defensive back can't take down, and you've got Jay Witt blocking downfield for you. If you have all of those pieces, I have to agree with Joe Fortenbaugh. But we're not going to know until we see it if that running back room is there. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we're going to do some baseball. And if you're an Astros fan, I don't think we're having another no-hitter on the way from Fromber today. Already 2-0 Orioles after one inning. We'll get back into some baseball talk. Got some audio from Bruce Bochy, some audio from the White House from Dusty Baker, right here on the Sports Complex on the Horn, 101.9 AM 1260, hornfm.com, and live on the Horn app. Back on the sports complex here on the Horn. Playing debut singles from some of the biggest artists in the world to celebrate our first week here on the Horn. Outkast. Starting off hot. First single. Killing it with Players Ball. And you know what? At Harge, if you're out there listening, I never got my bobblehead from Chipper Jones. We were told we were getting bobbleheads. I blame Chipper. I blame him for a lot of my bad memories of youth being an Astros fan. Astros not looking great right now with a runner on third for the Orioles. We'll get to the Astros in a minute. Remember our poll of the day, if you want to text us in, 512-337-3776. We're asking, who is the current worst owner in sports? Because Kevin Brown, the announcer for the Orioles, suspended indefinitely. All reports are suspended indefinitely for simply stating that the Orioles had historically, in the last few years, been very bad when playing in Tampa Bay, which is true. He didn't say anything wrong, and he was saying that they were playing much better now. It had a positive spin on it. But he is suspended indefinitely, so we're looking for some thin-skinned, terrible sports owners that are currently running it. And look, fortunately, Michael Jordan was one of those. He's gone. Dan Snyder was one. He's gone. Donald Sterling's gone. Like, so I think they've worked out some of the bad ones. But if we can say, I think we're also kind of predicting who's going to be the next terrible one. We got to predict that too. Who's the next one? Mark Davis is up there, that he may be the one that just continues to go downhill in Vegas. I was rooting for the Vegas. I was rooting for him last year. I was trying to believe. We got a good last name in Mark Davis. You know, any Davises I got to support. Did not end well. Texas Rangers win last night in Oakland. It was an ugly game. I know they came out afterwards and acted like they really won that game. They scored 3 runs off of errors. A catch in the outfield. You know, I know he was going up against the wall, but yeah, you got to make that catch if you're playing Major League Baseball. And a catch, routine play to first base, the pitcher couldn't catch it. You get a couple runs on these things. So as much as it was an important win. You got to get that win. It wasn't exactly the confidence inspiring, man, we blew out the Oakland A's. I think they're going to come out tonight. And Max Scherzer's pitching. It seems much more like they're going to try and make a statement today. Because again, this is a big part of the series. They could take a 3-game series by the Astros being off yesterday. They get a 3-game lead over the Astros in the AL division. The Astros right now playing the Orioles. It is going to be a tough series. This is one of the biggest series for Baltimore. We'll play some audio of Dusty saying that thing and coming off not very nice. Let's put it this way. For the fact that they would have suspended their own announcer for less than what Dusty Baker said. But I do have some audio from Bruce Bochy. He was talking about playing in Oakland. And one of the things I'll give Bruce Bochy a lot of credit for is he's been able to get this team amped up. He's been able to get this team focused and playing at a level that you need to play to be in the playoffs in any sport, but in baseball, you have to be focused. It is a long season, and to win a division, to be able to get in, to get a good seed, to be able to win in the playoffs, you have to stay focused. You have to stay up. You cannot get down, even though you are playing a much maligned team that is trying to lose in a building with nobody there. And Bruce Bochy was on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas today, and they asked him about what it's like to play in Oakland right now, considering the fact that there's almost nobody there. Here's what Bruce Bochy had to say.
Well, it's completely different than what we were playing in front of at Texas there. I mean, our fans are really into the games. We appreciate that. I mean, it was just a lot of fun in that homestand. And come here, I mean, we all know about what's going on here in Oakland, so it is something we did talk about and discuss. You got to get yourselves up to playing these games. I mean, it's not even spring training, and those games can be a little dead at times. But when you have a stadium that probably seats 60,000, there's 4,000 or 5,000 in there. It looks like nobody's in there. It's really quiet. In fact, we were kidding in the dugout at times, just kind of whispering, "Hey, be quiet, everybody." And so it's different, but hey, you got to get yourself up. These games count; they count just the same as any game you play. So it's going to be important that we continue, to play like we did last night.
Yeah, they're going to have to continue to play. They have to play better than they played last night because they won the game. But again, you get a couple of errors. You get some lucky balls in there that if you don't win this game without the errors. So this team needs to play a little bit better. I get it. You're in Oakland. It's hard to get going. And there's injuries. There's injuries for the Rangers right now. We know they've been dealing with it for a little while. Did get a little report that Jonah Heim, the all-star catcher for the Rangers, is coming back. Here's Bruce Bochy talking about Jonah Heim's recovery progress and seeing if he's going to be able to be back sooner rather than later. This is him talking earlier today on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas.
I tell you, it's encouraging with Jonah. It really is. Caught Montgomery's pen. He's swinging a bat. He's letting it go too. So I don't know what the timetable is, but it's been really accelerated to the point where, I'm not going to be surprised once we get home if he's not knocking on the door as far as getting some playing time or getting back in there. Now, from the right side, he has not swung the bat, but the left sides have no issues. He's having no issues receiving the ball. Meanwhile, he's doing all his running and everything to make sure once he can go, he's ready to go.
So there's Bruce Bochy talking about Jonah Heim getting ready to go. The Astros not looking like they're going to have a great game today. Already down 5-0 against the Orioles. And Framber is on the game. Throws a no-hitter last game. He was told by Martin Maldonado to slow down. He was doing great. But if he throws a no-hitter and he's already given up 5 runs in 2 innings, or an inning and a third or an inning and 2/3 so far today. So not a great start there for Framber. It's that inconsistency we've seen with Framber this year that certain guys are starting to figure him out. You get a no-hitter in there, you feel a little bit more confident, and we get back to 5 runs through 1 2/3 innings. Grayson Rodriguez is going for Baltimore tonight. Not a great name, but does not seem to matter if you get the run support. Up 5-0 right now. No Chas McCormick in the lineup as well. I know Jake Myers had the great game Sunday against the Yankees. But, yeah, Chas McCormick already back on the bench for Dusty. Is it going to stay for the rest of the series, or is this a one game, give him some rest? I know you were at the White House yesterday, and Dusty Baker, always good for a sound clip. Here's Dusty Baker at the White House yesterday talking about this series with the Orioles coming up.
I said the night we won that if we won 1, we'd win 2. And so now I got to keep my word. I like keeping my word. And we're in the middle of making it happen right now. Coming off a great series in New York, heading into a big series in Baltimore, probably the biggest series that Baltimore has had in a while. But hey, I'm known to be honest, No harm intended.
No harm intended from Dusty Baker there. I think he may have given some locker room material for Baltimore, up 5-0 through 2 innings already against the Astros today. That game is on TBS if you want to watch it, and you do not have AT&T Sportsnet. I still can't stand the standoff of these smaller companies that are going under and are only on a couple platforms, and it's very hard to get the games. But today's game you'll be able to watch on TBS. I don't know how great of a game it's going to be. We've already seen 5 runs scored. Hopefully the Astros, who did not put up a lot of runs against they did have that last Sunday game where they put up 9 runs against the Yankees, but did not get a lot of hits going through the series against the Yankees on the road. I think it's going to be the Astros are very much waiting to get home, get off of this ride of playing 8 series against teams with winning records in a row. I do believe they play the Angels next, who are on a 7-game losing streak. The Rangers have not lost a game since the trade deadline. The Angels have not won a game since they decided not to trade Shohei Ohtani. And I said at the time, by the trade deadline, that was a dumb decision. And I'll give him, if they can come back and make the playoffs, and even if they don't make the playoffs, if he stays in the offseason, then it wasn't a dumb decision because you kept Shohei Ohtani, and I get it. if he leaves in the offseason, you don't make the playoffs, and you added more salary, you did everything, but you didn't fix the problems. You still don't have a deep team. You still don't have your problems figured out in LA. Then this may have been one of the worst decisions you've ever made not to trade Shohei Ohtani, because he's killing it still. But no one else on this team can play. I don't know what's happening for the Angels, but it's as someone else in that division and how good, and the Mariners are only a couple games behind the Astros. They're trying to come back and make a run. Even though they're sellers every year, it kind of pisses off the team, and they seem to play better after the team gives away some of their better players. I don't get it, but the Mariners, that seems to be their track record. Of course, the Rangers in action a little bit later tonight. We're going to take one last break. We'll come back for last call. We will give we got a couple more. If you have another answer, 512-337-3776 is the Specs text line. If you have an answer for who is the current worst owner in sports, we're trying to figure out these thin-skinned billionaires who seem to get so upset. If you have an answer for that, send it in, 512-337-3776. Patrick's Big Fat Poll today. Who is the worst owner in sports currently? Send that in. We'll wrap up the show here on the other side, here on the Horn. Make sure to check that out. We'll be back tomorrow with more. Until then, please, thank you so much for everybody who joined us on the Specs text line. I was looking forward. I'm really flustered and thrown off because the Astros now with bases loaded though. So maybe I'll not be, by the time I leave the office tonight, I won't be as flustered and I'll be able to enjoy, some of this game. But, until then, I'm just going to have to deal with the fact that, this may be a long series for the Astros. I don't know if I'm going to be able to handle that, but you'll find out tomorrow. Right back here, 5 p.m. on the Sports Complex. Until then, have a great night. Enjoy yourself. Keep your underwear clean. And we'll see you tomorrow right here, 5 o'clock on the Horn.